Tall. Good. Perfect. Afternoon. We would like to welcome Tom Whitney to the Media Center here at the American Express. Tom, welcome. You're making your PGA Tour debut as a member, but your second start here. Just want to start off with some opening comments, what it's like to be at a place where you grew up.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bummed I didn't get into the field in Sony and get my year started last week, but the silver lining is I get to make my debut here in my hometown in front of a hometown crowd, and I'm pretty comfortable at this place. Got to play here in 2018 on a sponsor invite, and now I've earned my way here and get to play as a member, as you alluded. And yeah, courses are in great shape so far. Really looking forward to the week.
And shortly after you turned pro, after the Air Force, you won here in the area. What golf course was that and what event?
Yeah, that was Avendale Country Club, Avendale something in Palm Desert on the e-golf tour. And yeah, I think that was like less than 7 days removed from active duty. So that was just pretty cool validation of me stepping away from a full-time job with guaranteed promotions, guaranteed salary, benefits, all that jazz, to chase the little white ball. And for me to win my first tournament out was, yeah, validation that I was on the right path for the time being.
Like you said, played here 2018, but what's your familiarity with the courses around here? And did you come to this event at all as a spectator growing up?
I don't think I ever came and spectated. I'm not the most diehard fan at home. I'm starting to tune into golf a lot more now that my kids are getting into it and enjoying watching it. But I got to play these courses through tournaments, and I had friends in high school that worked in the cart barn that would let me out. And but the kind of crazy thing about growing up here in the Valley is I never had a membership at any of the clubs here. I gained access through junior golf and SCPGA tournaments in the summer, and giving buddies $5 in the middle of July in the cart barn and then get free rain all day. And that's kind of how I've played most of the tracks out here in the Valley. But yeah, never had a membership anywhere.
I'll have a couple more for you at the end, but I know Larry has some, so we'll give him the mic.
If I remember correctly, the last time you were here, you were in a rush. You got a late sponsor exemption and kind of had to get here real fast?
Yeah, so I had flown to, I think Sunday morning I had flown from Dallas to Miami to play in the qualifiers for the International Corn Ferry events. So they hold back-to-back qualifiers on a Monday and a Wednesday, and it's for the Panama and Colombia tournaments. And I had just flown out Sunday morning. I think I had finished one of the practice rounds, and then Pat reached out to me Sunday evening. I mean, early here, late East Coast. And it's pretty funny. I remember taking the call, and I didn't say yes immediately just because initially I was going through logistics. Can I get there on time? What's it going to cost to get me out there? I had just flown out here a few hours ago. And I remember just telling him, like, let me call you back real quick, and did a quick search, and it finally dawned on me, like, what are you doing, Tom? Like, this is what you asked for. And I knew I was going to say yes all along, but it's just kind of silly that I didn't say yes on that initial phone call. And then hopped on a plane back, laying over through Dallas straight into Palm Springs on Monday, and then I think I managed to get all 3 practice rounds in Monday afternoon, Tuesday, and Wednesday before starting on Thursday. So it was definitely a whirlwind.
When you're at La Quinta, I mean, you're going to go to the Air Force Academy. The Air Force Academy isn't necessarily the traditional path to the PGA Tour. And yet here you are on the PGA Tour. Was this something that you did think about when you were in high school, or was it something that came after while you were in the Air Force Academy? Because you played there.
Yeah, there might have been some glimpses when I was a high schooler, but nothing. I don't think I was making any, long-term golf career decisions at that point. I was just trying to figure out my life and where I was headed, and Fortunately, got to follow my brother Bob to the academy, and when he was there and I was finishing up school in high school, I had met the team and the coach and seen the facilities, and really just kind of fell in love with it and thought it would be cool to at least start out there and give it a try. And then thankfully, after I got there and got through that first year, I'd really fallen in love with the place and really the idea of just being part of something bigger than myself, and a calling, if you will, of just being part of that greater mission. And so that's how I ended up there. Still playing golf for them, Division I school, Mountain West. Not necessarily a powerhouse, but still got to compete with some of the best teams in the country week in and week out. And I think I had 5 individual titles during my tenure there. I had a pretty impressive string of top 10s, either my sophomore or junior year, and in my senior year, I spent a good chunk of time in the top 25 individual rankings. And I think it was at that point that I truly knew, like, okay, I'm going to honor my commitment to the Air Force. I'm going to finish that out, and then I'm going to give golf a go, because I can't not try and be able to live with myself if I didn't do it. So. And
now you're here.
Now I'm here. 10 years later, yeah.
Since then, it's been a variety of tours that you've been on. Did you just play the best golf you've ever played last year, or did it just the breaks went your way and you played that well before?
I think it's a combination of I'm getting better and more consistent on a weekly basis. But honestly, some of the best golf I ever played was back in 2015 when I was on the mini tours. And I mean, that's the golf I played last year was definitely better than that. But in that year playing on the mini tours, it was kind of the start of the decline of mini tours in the States, where the Swing Thought Tour no longer had the $200,000 purses and the money leader being in $200,000, $300,000 in his pocket at the end of the year. It was kind of on the decline, and I think the money I earned that year with 4 firsts and 4 seconds throughout state opens and pro-ams and just all the mini tour events I played, the money I earned would have qualified me for a graduating spot at number 25 on the web.com list at the time. So that was again another one of those moments where I'm not there yet. I don't have the status, but I know I'm good enough to compete. Keep my head down, keep trucking along, and spent a year and a half on the mini tours. Then ventured down to Latin America and spent a year there and graduated out of the top 10 category and earned conditional web.com status, Korn Ferry status. And then fought for 2 years with conditional status on Korn Ferry, and I'm probably gonna lean on a lot of those experiences because I'm a status carrying member on this tour, but it doesn't quite feel like the fully exempt guys. So I show up to Sony last week and start or end up second alternate. In the field by a good bit here, but not in Phoenix, maybe not in Mexico. So I'm going to be on the bubble for a while, and we'll definitely have to lean on the lessons I learned from playing Mondays and being on the edge of the commitments list from those 2 years on Korn Ferry. And then at the end of those 2 years, I fell back down after a bad year in 18. Kind of reassessed my game, what I was doing wrong, and focused on my time management Monday through Wednesday, and in a lesser capacity. So I was doing too much work. Case in point, flying out here, it was mandatory for me to see every single hole before teeing off, where a wiser me receiving this invite at that time would probably see one or two of the courses and maybe walk and putt one of them and save my energy. But that's just kind of stuff you have to learn along the way. And yeah, and then 6 years of learning lessons on Korn Ferry in total, and finally made it here.
We have Todd right behind.
So to the point you just made, is being a 34-year-old rookie far different than being a 21-year-old rookie?
Yeah, for sure. Probably lagging a little behind in the energy, but miles ahead in just the life experiences. And there's so many things that you can't learn out here without having experienced it. And I mean, I'm looking back at a lot of pieces of advice I've received from veterans, and they kind of went in one ear and out the other. And you don't really internalize those until you live it and experience it yourself. And I mean, kudos to the young guys that have already figured it out at this point. But yeah, I've learned a lot in my 10 years. I wouldn't trade it for getting here any sooner. I think the timing's perfect. God's got me right where I'm supposed to be, and yeah, just looking forward to entering my prime.
Wanted to ask you about something else you touched on about being bummed about not getting in Sony, and just kind of how a rookie is looking at things these days on the PGA Tour as far as trying to get in these early events. So when you were trying to map out your schedule, did you have a pretty decent idea of what you're going to get in and what you're not, and how difficult is that to just want to play and be delayed in that?
Yeah, I think part of the experience piece is I've learned that, hey, whoever signs up ahead of me is outside of my circle of influence. I have no control over that. So I want to play in everything. I won't get every opportunity, but there's nothing I can do to change that, other than entering a Monday qualifier or, that route. But I'm not going to dwell on the stuff that I don't have any control over. So, that made last week a little more passable. And look at the schedule. I mean, Phoenix will probably be near impossible to get in. Mexico's still kind of on the fence. They're also 132, and then Cognizant is another 144. But the PGA Tour is in uncharted waters as far as they don't have metrics on who's going to play what and who's going to take what off. So we're all kind of in an uncertain holding pattern and just kind of figuring out as we go.
Can I ask you about being second alternate? How were you sitting there kind of looking at updates on who's not in and who's in, things like that? And how late did it go as far as you kind of still hoping that you'd be in?
I think the hope kind of dies out, at least after the first wave finishes, and I'm still holding number two alternate, but I wasn't going to leave the property until the last group exited, because you don't want to be part of that story where, the last two guys got food poisoning or, whatever, and they pulled out and Tom's nowhere to be found. Yeah, I just can't even imagine being a part of that scene. So, yeah, I was at the practice facilities just kind of doing 30 minutes of practice, 30 minutes of break, just being in the area ready to go. And fortunately, I got some really good practice in that week. I got to do a practice run on the tournament course on Tuesday and an off-site pro-am on Wednesday. I played in the Monday qualifier, and then kind of utilized the practice facilities all day Thursday, and then flew home Friday.
Will you be at Torrey?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was one of the ones that obviously bigger field, so you were able to get in? Yeah,
so that's another 2-course, 156 players. So, yeah, I should be in by 10 or more.
Does it feel like a lot of pressure to perform when you're going to get your opportunities? Because there's a lot out there as far as rewards for playing well?
I don't think so. There was more pressure coming here in 2018 on a sponsor's invite, and now I was chatting with my caddy earlier today, and it feels like I belong out here. I've earned my way to hold this card. And I mean, Monday morning, I'm in breakfast and JT's eating with another guy, and I could sit by myself and be at a table alone, or I'd go join those guys, and I'd go join them and meet them. And I mean, we're all peers out here. We're all trying to get to number one spot. We're all going through highs and lows, and we're going through it together. It's honestly pretty similar to the stuff I learned at the academy, going through basic together. Everyone has highs, everyone has lows. Everyone needs help from different people at different times, and we're trying to beat each other, but we're also all trying to get better at the same time.
Your backstory obviously is kind of known at this point. People have mentioned it. It's not like you were making pizzas or selling insurance out there. Are you surprised that people know or have learned that story about your time in the Air Force?
No, I'm not surprised anymore. I mean, I've been grinding away for almost 10 years now, so I've put myself in the public spotlight, or tried to get myself in that spotlight for 10 years, and there's been a lot of fantastic writers that have written on my behalf and given a glimpse into what my life has looked like in the past, part of the Air Force, and the journey afterwards with my wife and our 4 kids, and being 34 as a rookie, and it's cool that people get to know my background and how I got to where I am.
But your background is not like some Tom Clancy movie. If I remember you talking to you about this, you said 12-hour shifts and they were kind of dull.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, so nuclear missile operator, 24-hour shifts with a crew partner, 8 times a month. And I think in total spent around 200 shifts underground by the time it was all said and done. And yeah, a lot of dull moments. It's not a sexy job while you're doing it, and at times it can not even be very enjoyable. But I'll tell you, it didn't take very long after I separated and left that job and started golf full time to where I missed it, and I completely misgauged what I had. And you think the grass is literally greener as you're entering the career of golf, and man, I had it easy. People told me where I had to be, when I had to be there, what I had to wear, how long I had to be there for, what I was going to get paid. I pretty much knew what I was going to be fed. I mean, all the hard decisions were made for me, and I just kind of had to follow a checklist. Now, going from Korn Ferry to here, there are so many unknowns that you just kind of learn along the way. And I mean, this is just an impressive venue. 3 courses, massive clubhouse, great player amenities, massive driving range. I mean, you're just navigating around this whole property, trying to figure out where everything is, where the media room is, and
beautiful mountains that you probably took for granted the entire time you were here.
Yeah, yeah. These are mountains. I came from Colorado.
Well, you're from Colorado.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Yeah. It's yeah.
But now now you'd like to be known as the guy who is successful on the PGA Tour and not talk about that stuff anymore, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I think the reason everyone likes to stick to that is because there's 3 of us in the modern era of golf that have gone on this journey: Billy Hurley, Kyle Westmoreland, and myself. So we didn't come from a powerhouse golf school. We didn't go to professional golf academies for high school. We served our country and then decided to take a gamble on this career. And I think whether you're a serviceman and you're reading this and you can identify with just the drive or the journey, or if you're someone that just thinks, well, that's different, that's really cool. So yeah, I'm fine that people are still considering me, the Air Force guy rather than the PGA Tour player, because that's always going to be part of who I am.
Before we go back to Todd, you mentioned Kyle Westmoreland. Have you spoken to him about advice on how to attack the rookie season?
Not yet. I was rooting for him final stage. Man, he was so close to coming back here in the Korn Ferry Finals category, and no, I haven't reached out to him yet. He's off to a good start in Bahamas, and yeah, I'm sure at some point there'll be some questions asked of, all right, where should I stay this week? Do you have any Air Force connections at any events coming up that I can mooch off of? But yeah, that's the cool thing about even up at this level is, I can still lean on the 20-year veterans and ask them where to stay, where to eat, how to go about things, and they're pretty willing to step in and help.
Back to Todd, then Mark.
Can you explain what your underground job was? Mm-hmm. What was it?
Yeah, so I was a nuclear missile operator. That means me and a crew partner were positioned at about 100 feet underground in a personnel silo, directly wired and attached to our nuclear missiles. So we have 3 nuclear missile bases in the United States, one in Wyoming, one in Montana, one in North Dakota. And I was stationed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And of those 150 missiles, myself and my crew partner would be primarily in charge of 10 of them. And you would show up to the base, let's say on a Monday, and mission plan for 2 to 3 hours. You talk about expected weather, expected maintenance that happened over the last 24-hour period, any relevant intelligence threats or situations, and then just anything else that can overall affect your upcoming alert. Then you drive out to the site, which can be anywhere from 45 minutes to 2.5 hours from the base. Everything's spread out among Wyoming, Colorado, and Nebraska. So it's a good-sized field, or we call it the missile field. The entire complex is about the size of Rhode Island. And if you think about it, there's 150 missiles, 15 personnel sites, and the base, and everything is hardwired underground. So just the engineering and planning that went into it to install these pressure-sensitive cables and trenching all that to connect everything. It's a really cool weapon system. So you get out to the site, you go underground, and you transfer over with the previous crew, get briefed up on everything that happened. And then once they're gone, you have anywhere from an hour to 3 hours of just routine checklist items, going through all your daily tests, inventorying everything, and then it's just whatever is scheduled for that specific alert. Sometimes you have maintenance scheduled on one of the missiles. Sometimes you have retargeting measures that all the crews have to send out, where we change the targets of where the missiles are aimed based on current intelligence. Sometimes there's just communications systems repairs or maintenance we have to accomplish. We respond to security situations. So basically we have 1,500 pages of technical data. And as missileers, we are trained to know how to prioritize what happens and where to look to follow the checklist. So anything that happens to the missile goes through the missile crew, which I was a part of. So if maintenance is happening, if security response is happening, if a test, exercise, fire, underground shocks from an earthquake, whatever we have to respond to, basically we're the go-between between security, maintenance, and everything else. And ultimately, our main training part of the mission is we are the ones that launch the missile if the president sends the order. And it goes from the president to US Stratcom, US Stratcom to us. So there's only one entity in between us and the president if we are launching a nuclear missile.
Did that change your life perspective?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, golf is just what I am currently doing, and I'm completely blessed to do it. But I could still be in the Air Force at a place I don't want to be. I could be in harm's way. I could be fighting enemies. I've lost friends and loved ones in the armed forces. I have friends that are deployed, and I'm here in Palm Springs with 2 miles per hour wind, 75 degrees, getting paid to play these fantastic golf courses. Absolutely, I have a different perspective because I signed up to basically saying I'm willing to give my life for this country, and never came anywhere close to that point. But I mean, that's kind of what you're agreeing to when you join the military, and just understanding that, like, man, there's tough days out here, but in the grand scheme of things, I get to play golf for a living. I get to represent some awesome companies. I get to do what I love, and pretty much have control over my schedule and what I do day to day. And so, yeah, it's definitely fixed my perspective on life. Mm-hmm.
We have Mark.
Hey, Tom, you obviously have built a lot of good relationships during your time in the military. Do you still stay in touch with a lot of those guys? Do you hear from them? Do you text with them? And what are their opinions or thoughts on what you're doing now?
Oh yeah, I'm in touch with quite a few from all aspects of my military life. I'm part of a group of all of the military golfers on the active duty side. Every year, the Air Force hosts an all Air Force wide golf tournament, and the Navy, Marines, and Army do as well. And then at the end of that competition, the 6 members that make up each of those teams come and gather and play in the Armed Forces event. And then the top 6 players from that tournament represent the U.S. military at the World Military Championships. And I got to participate in those for 4 years while I was on active duty, and still keep in touch with a lot of those guys from that group. And I keep in touch with one of my roommates and groomsmen still to this day, and I have a buddy that played on the football team that we're still in communication daily. And yeah, I mean, the Air Force is essentially a massive fraternity that you will always be a part of. And the coolest part is I have the Air Force behind me. I also have all the other services behind me. I mean, it feels like I have the entire armed forces rooting for me. And I think everyone thinks it's cool that, I served my time in the Air Force, and then, I have a skill set that not many people have. And I think at orientation we were told that only 1,600 people have ever had a full PGA Tour card. That's a real slim number when you boil it down. So, the fact that I could serve my time in the Air Force and then transition over to this job and have success is really cool.
Just following up on that, any of those friends, have they departed the military and gone on to do something that you're kind of in awe of them, doing something else in public life?
Yeah, I've had some friends that have left and started their own companies. I got one buddy, John Sepp. He purchased a bison ranch in Montana, and just the outdoorsman in me is super jealous. And his company is Go Roam Free, and he supports me on the snacking side as well. But yeah, I mean, he served his time and got out and started pursuing his dream. and he's had some major successes running this bison ranch, and now he's in, I think, multiple Costco's throughout the nation. And another friend runs a top 100 cybersecurity company in the world, and it's really cool to see people leave the military and then go on to do great things, because not everyone is going to be able to serve a 20-year commitment. There's an understanding that we're all going to go our separate ways. The 23 grad just won Miss America a couple nights ago from the Air Force Academy. She was crowned Miss Colorado, and then just was crowned Miss America for 2024. Like, that is really cool, and it's cool to see that there's people that have passions outside the military, but also the determination and skill sets to pursue full-time careers, active duty, and be competent enough to keep up their journeys on the side of whatever they're pursuing outside the military as well. So yeah, I feel like I have a lot of fans from the Air Force side that are excited to see me excelling outside of the uniform.
And just one more. Is there something that you could consider the most challenging part of being in service, and then maybe the most rewarding part of being in service in your time in there, that might lend itself to helping or assisting you in your pursuit now as a professional golfer?
The most rewarding part by far was just having the team around you. That was one of the toughest things to get used to out here. You're in the Air Force, you're assigned to a wing, which is a base, and in that wing you're assigned to a group. Inside that group you're in a squadron, inside that squadron you're in a flight, and you have all those levels of organizations that you're a part of, and just the team aspect is really tight. It's just a brotherhood inside of your units, inside of your squadrons, and you get out here and it's a very lonely sport, or it can be at times. Golf is an individual sport. Sometimes you got to figure it out on your own. A lot of times you got to bring in teammates to help you, whether it's a swing coach, mental coach, fitness coach. But essentially you're kind of traveling on your own and figuring out as you go. So yeah, I miss the brotherhood of the Air Force for sure. I think that was half of your question. What can you ask it again?
Rewarding, challenging, just.
Oh yeah, that was one of the most rewarding. One of the most challenging parts. Probably just giving up control to the Air Force and allowing them to tell me where I'm going to live and what I'm going to do. I was truly devastated when I received my initial assignment as a missile operator in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Young cadet Tom, when he filled out his requests for base assignments, put San Antonio and Eglin, Florida, and Phoenix, Arizona, and all of the warm, sunny places where I could keep my golf game up. And then in order to station me with my wife, they gave me 2 hours more north of the academy in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And there was a good amount of tears shed that night just at the feeling of not being in control, not getting what I thought was the best thing for me. And it's really one of the testimonies of my faith journey as well, because fast forwarding and looking back at that chapter in my life, working shift work in nuclear missiles was probably the best assignment I could have had to keep my golf game up, because when I was complete with my duty for the day, I was clear and free to practice golf on my off time. There was no obligation to sit behind a desk from 7:30 to 5:30 like a lot of the regular jobs in the Air Force require, especially the service jobs where, if you're in personnel or finance, you're manning the desk in case someone comes up with an issue. In missiles, you work your shift, you go to your training, and other than that, you're good to go. And we grew up, or in Fort Collins where we lived, we were surrounded by an awesome new church, and just the foundation of our marriage was strengthened, living and being surrounded by that community there, and so it was challenging to not be in control, but at the same time, it's taught me some great lessons of I can make the plans of how I think things should go, but I'm old enough now and wise enough now to realize that they're not always going to go my way, and I'm learning to roll with the punches and just be patient and enjoy where I'm at in the present.
While we get a microphone over to Doug for the final question, sticking with the Air Force theme, been coordinating the flyover for Friday. What kind of goes into that process of getting that through?
Yeah, it was kind of a doozy. It was a lot more involved than I expected, but there's an official form and request that you have to send to Big Air Force. Big Air Force then recognizes the request, and then it's on me to coordinate with the FAA. So I had to take that form and send it to the Riverside FAA office and get approval for them, or from them, and then coordinate with the March Air Reserve Base down in Riverside, that was the unit that wanted the flyover. And so quite a good bit involved, and then coordinating the best time to do it, because we basically play until dark, and the Air Force has rules about flying after dark just for safety, and especially being so close to these mountains, hills, mountains, whatever. Yeah, that's fair. So we were able to squeeze it in. It's set for Friday, right after play ends, right before the Keith Urban concert, and I just wanted to do something cool for the tournament. That's been so nice to me, and also for all my fellow players. Coordinating this. I think you mentioned it. I'm probably the first player that's ever coordinated a flyover for a tournament.
I feel pretty safe in saying that.
Yeah. So that's just kind of cool, a little way that I can give back, and the unit's really looking forward to representing the Air Force, and they're going to have a handful of guys from their squadron out watching the golf this week, and it's just cool to bring part of my brotherhood that I talked about earlier, into the tournament.
What's flying over?
I think it's F-16s. I gotta verify what kind of fire base it is.
And we'll take the final one from Doug.
Okay. Hey, Tom, you kind of answered with Mark's question. People can make the argument that you can learn a lot about yourself on a golf course. I would imagine you can learn a lot about yourself in the military as well. Just curious as to maybe if there's one or two particular things that you kind of grew into or became through your time there that you are glad you became because of the military, and how, if possible, that has helped you on the golf course. In other words, take the old Tom, add the military experience. Who's the new Tom that came out, and how has that helped him on the golf course?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is just your specific sphere of control and staying inside of that. And by that I mean, there's going to be things outside what you can control, and if you let that affect your emotions, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. And there's a lot of things in the military that are outside of your control. Call it red tape, call it whatever you want. But there's decisions that are made at many levels above you that come down, and you may or may not agree with. But at the end of the day, we are reporting to specific officers. We are reporting to our president, and in my specific job, I signed the line to saying if I was given a lawful order to launch a nuclear missile, I would do so. And that just learning that lesson over time, I think has really freed me up and given me a lot of peace out here, just on the day-to-day. I mean, I flew a direct flight from Dallas to here Sunday night, and my clubs didn't get on somehow. And I would say the old Tom would have gone down a deep spiral of, okay, my Monday is now screwed up. I was supposed to tee off at 8:30. My clubs aren't here. They're not landing till noon. I'm missing all these checklist items that I had planned to accomplish. And the new Tom is, okay, well, I guess I'll hit the new wedges for an hour or so and get used to those. I needed to work on wedges anyway. So, it's almost a blessing that my clubs didn't show up, because now I can more intentionally focus on this aspect. Just kind of learning to view things from a different perspective of realizing, well, if I let go of control of stuff that I couldn't control in the first place, well, then it's a lot easier to roll with the punches. That's probably the biggest lesson I've taken from my time there.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Perfect. We do have one final one. If you want to just come closer, just so we can hear you. If you don't mind going on the mic, I can get to the transcriptionist.
So I just have one quick question. Obviously, you were talking about being stationed where you were. How did you keep your golf game up? You said you had time to keep it up. How did you do so? Because I know not everyone's living here in Palm Springs right now. I think it's probably an interesting piece of advice for a lot of those dealing with a lot of winter cold weather and keeping their games up as well.
Yeah, great question. So, time-wise, I alluded to those alerts that last for 24 hours, and they kind of span over a day and a half. I would, on a really good, efficient day, if I went out on an alert on Monday, I would get back Tuesday around 2 or 3, and that would free me up to play golf until sundown. And I mean, summers in Colorado, it gets dark at 9 p.m. So, and then sometimes I would have multiple weekdays off in a row where the course is empty, everyone's either at work or taking care of real life stuff, and I'm at the course by myself and have free reign over the practice facilities. Cold wise, Fort Collins was actually better than I expected. They're kind of protected by some of the mountains near them, and it'll snow, and it'll be 65 a couple days later, and the snow will be gone. And one cool thing about most courses in Colorado is they don't shut down. If it's warm enough, they're open. So a lot of courses kind of on the East Coast where it does get pretty cold, they'll shut down for the off season. That's not really how Colorado operates. So I think every year I lived there, I was able to play in short sleeves every month of the year, at least a few times. So it was better than I expected going into it. And then I was very blessed to have access to multiple clubs out there when I lived in Fort Collins, and with some indoor facilities to do work. And part of that, outside of my circle of influence, I mean, I can't control the weather, so I learned to be patient with that as well. And if I was planning on working on my game and a snowstorm rolled in, then I would just focus my time elsewhere on something that I needed to get done. And I wouldn't put so much pressure on myself that, I'm getting behind on my game. I could be productive. It's just, okay, well, it's snowing out. I'll do something else, and when it's sunny again, I'll go back out there. So, yep.
Perfect. Tom, thank you so much for the time. We wish you the best of luck this week and look forward to the flyover Friday.
All right, yeah.